She was in the news for all the wrong reasons a couple of weeks ago. Dominique Ollivier, second in command in the city, head of the Executive Council, the chair, before that, head of the OCPM, all of a sudden announces her resignation, which got a lot of people by surprise, but that was only after. It turns out some reports said she misappropriated funds, had luxurious dinners, traveled around the world while she headed the OCPM. She wanted a chance to tell her side of the story. We spoke to her, I did earlier this morning, and began, by going back to the beginning. Let me go back to the beginning, if we can call it that. A couple of weeks ago, scandal breaks out over the time that you were head of the Office of Public Consultation in Montreal, $350-some-odd oyster dinner, traveled to different parts of the world, and the next thing you know, you resign. I know you're saying you've done nothing wrong, we don't know all the facts, then why resign?
I resigned because, as I said on my resignation speech, because to do the job of the president of the executive committee of the city of Montreal, when you're in charge of finances, when you're in charge of human resources, when you're in charge of governmental relations, you have to have a certain serenity to do the job. People have to have some confidence in you. And that's a bit what I sensed, is that 3 weeks ago, I was one of the most respected person in Montreal. And suddenly I was getting hate mail, I was getting racist comments, I was getting people that were asking me to leave without even being able to say exactly what was wrong.
After you resigned,
yes,
it came out a few days later that back in 2017, that office let you know when you submitted an expense report that there were some inconsistencies there. You said you answered that letter, nothing ever happened. What was that?
Well, that's again something that I find interesting, because I explained all of that to the journalists that came and saw me. And nobody asked, how come they knew there was a 2017 report? Because I told them. I said the only time that we had a red flag was in 2017 when the Auditor General, and it's really a red flag because she approved all our expenses, but she says some expenses might seem, the exact sentence is surprenant. I don't know, how do you say that in English? Surprising. She says, so it would be nice if you had a policy that would explain it better. But it's a recommendation. It's not saying, no, this doesn't work. And the second thing that she said in that report is that in terms of governance, it doesn't seem healthy to her that all that power is into the hand of one person. But that's the way the law is written.
But you were that person.
And I was that person, but she wasn't talking about my expenses. She was talking in general. She says, you have a treasurer, which is the treasurer of the city. So the treasurer of the city should meet with you more regularly, should maybe approve some of the expenses. And what we said is that we explained to her what the law said, basically the charter of the city of Montreal that defines the OCPM and how it works. And we said, we have to be able to maintain that independency, because one of the things that we have to remember is that when Mayor Bourque was there, he totally trashed the Department of Public Participation, saying it wasn't necessary. So when they did one city, one island, if you remember, one of the conditions was that the civil society put was that we had a mechanism that was independent of political influences so that it could do.
So I'm sorry, I want to just touch on that. So you said the idea of, you want to maintain that independence. You felt that was important. Yet at the same time, nothing changed from that time to now, right?
Nothing changed. And one of the things, we said we wanted to maintain that independence, but we said we agreed that we could have a more robust way of controlling expenses. But that was on the hand of the city. So when the Auditor General sends us this report and we send her the answer, there's two parts in there. And at that point, I remember when I came in office, and I'm very sorry if you're listening, Yves Courchain, which was the treasurer at that time, I said, it's nice to meet you. I've never met you in 7 years.
But perception is a big part of what you're now living through, right? People look at this, they're judging you, and I know that's something that bothers you because you've said you did nothing wrong. But then people look at the fact that, first of all, the OCPM has offices in Cour Montreal. That's $270,000 in rent a year.
It was already there when I came in.
Okay. 70,000, I forgot what the total was, eating out at Chez Alexandre on a regular basis
That
as well.
wasn't
So
me.
explain that.
That wasn't me. And I never authorized stuff like that. You know, people said, oh, they eat. What they did is that they took the current administration and they took my 7 years, mixed it together, and said, this is what the head of the OCPM are doing. Yes, of course, I won't lie. I did go to maybe once a year to different tables that looked more expensive. For example, I went to the Europea, which people are talking about, or to Damas. But it was always with international partners that came to Montreal for a reason or another. And the same way when we go there, they take us out. When they come here, we take them out. But even if we look at that, for example, I will have a bill at the Europea, I have a bill of $81. I mean, we weren't drinking wine and sipping champagne and eating oysters.
So you felt that was unfair?
That is very unfair. Personally, I think that everybody's trying to kind of save face or whatever. But at the same time, I mean, you can look at everything that I did, and that's what bothers me. You know, whatever happens to me, it doesn't matter really. Because I think that when you go into politics, you go into politics to achieve a goal, and I was following that goal. And my goal was to give the people of Montreal, the city, that they had been talking to me in all those consultations while I was there at the OCPM. And at this point, you know, what I find sad is that people took a credit card bill, they looked at a credit card bill for 9 years, and they decided this was what defined the work that we did.
So let me ask you this. People have now said, the mayor actually on Tout le Monde en Parle just a few days ago said she has lost confidence. She used to talk about Isabelle Beaulieu, but in essence said the same thing about you. When you decided to resign, to go back to the original question, what had been your discussions with Valerie Plante at that time?
I had none. I offered her my resignation. At some point, I received some very threatening mail, and one that said, I hope that UPAC comes to your house and that you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. And I realized, I say, I'm going in 3 days to present a budget to people that think that UPAC should come into my house and I should be in prison for the rest of my life. For doing what? Having one oyster dinner 8 years ago in another job.
Which you've repaid, you said?
Which I've repaid, and not only repaid, I repaid in dollars of today. So that $300 and something, I put the interest on, and I made a check before I left of $400 and something.
Some will look and say, okay, you're no longer the head, obviously, of the OCPM. You haven't had that job, but you're still involved politically, and they say they can't necessarily trust someone after what happened to even be involved politically.
I would say, you know why I stay as counselor? I mean, whatever happened at the CMM, it's not my decision to make. But as a city councillor, I've received that one letter from that woman that says, I'm a single parent. Sometimes it's difficult for me to make ends meet. Maybe I eat once a day so I can take care of my daughter. But she says, I appreciate the way you face the music. I appreciate the responsibility that you took, and I would like to say that you still have my confidence. And when I received that letter, and I'm still talking about it, and I get goosebumps, I said, that's the person I'm working for. So she's the one who has to take the confidence away.
Dominique Ollivier talking about why she will stay on as a city councillor. Some people said, as I asked in that question, the trust is gone. How could you do that? She just told you why.
All the latest news and the people making it. Montreal Now with Aaron and Natasha. CJAD 800.
A little bit more from Dominique Ollivier today, speaking out against this whole situation at City Hall where she had to resign, being accused of misappropriating funds, excessive trips, et cetera, et cetera. But then at the end of all of this, because her successor, Isabelle Beaulieu, is in hot water as well, she may end up losing her job before this day's even done. I asked this. Why do we even need an Office of Public Consultation if the results are not necessarily going to be
I'm
followed?
going to say something that's not popular and that nobody wants to hear. But I went on the CJAD in March because we had some civil servants that were saying we're the victim of blatant racism. I'd like to remind people that 26,000 people in Montreal asked for a consultation on racism and systemic discrimination. Came out of there 32 recommendations that have been implemented, one of them that is going to be adopted this afternoon, that changed totally the way we are looking within the city at those things. I would like to say that when we had a consultation on Parc Jean Drapeau, when Mayor Coderre again had cut 10,000 trees to be able to do that amphitheater that only works like, a couple of weeks a year. Yeah. People came out and said in a public consultation, we don't want that. This is not, we don't believe that it should be
So you're making a fair case for why there should be an office for public consultation. Yeah. I would ask you then, given the fact that you are making that case, what needs to change in that office?
I think that what I'd like to say, and that's what I'd like to tell people, a lot of people have been saying, how come she doesn't say she's sorry? What I'm saying is that I agree there was an appearance for that oyster dinner, and by the way, it's the only one that people keep coming back to, because if they look at the rest, under my presidency, there might have been some questionable choices, but the fact is that they were into the norms that we had at that time. And I think that if you have a problem with the norms, we should change the norms. We should decide. I think it's an opportunity to decide, okay, what's acceptable for the Office de Consultation Publique and what's not. Do they need an expense account? Maybe they don't. Maybe we should just, the charter of the city says that the commissionaries have the right to have their mail reimbursed. Maybe we should just say, okay, instead of paying them $325 a day, we're going to pay them $350 a day and no more reimbursement. This is the real issue that has to be addressed at this point. Like I said, in our annual report, every year, all the travels were listed. How come none of the commission of the presidency that hears the annual report or the commission of finance, how come nobody asked the question, how much of your budget is dedicated to traveling? Or why are you traveling so much? They would say, oh, good job, Mrs. Ollivier. Keep going, keep going. It's good. You're our pride. Keep going.
When you resign, people will look at that and say, people who did nothing wrong or think they did nothing wrong don't resign. What's your answer to that?
My answer, again, is the fact that I'm the one that was in charge of the finance, and people were putting my skills as a finance person in doubt. There wasn't the calmness and the openness to receive whatever it is that I had to say anymore. Made my job impossible, and that's why I said I'm going to resign.
There you go. Dominique Ollivier trying to explain as best she can why she chose to resign, and not her fault. All right. Look, this story I'm sure is not going to go away. She was saying that she doesn't feel or didn't feel up until today that she'd had a chance to really make her case. I hope that explains it better to those wondering exactly what happened here. It may not.